Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Lillian and here I share stories, thoughts and moments from my friends. When my daughter-in-law laughed and said, "This old thing? No one wants your dusty recipes," something inside me snapped. I didn't say anything when she dropped my cookbook onto the floor, just picked it up, brushed off the cumin-scented dust, and held it to my chest like a child holding a broken toy. The sound of her laughter lingered in the kitchen, cutting sharper than any knife I'd ever held. It wasn't the first time I'd been dismissed in this house, but it was the first time I realized I'd let it happen. My name is Melanie. I'm 58 years old, born in Madurai, raised in Bangalore, and for the last 9 years a guest, an invisible, unpaid guest, in my only son's home in Fremont, California. I used to think of myself as a woman with a quiet strength. I cooked 3 meals a day for my husband for 34 years, woke up before the sun to grind fresh chutneys, roast the masalas myself, dry mango pieces for pickle season. When he passed from a heart attack 6 winters ago, I told myself I still had my son, Arjun. That family would carry me through. But grief has a way of exposing the cracks in even the most carefully arranged lives. Arjun married Meera just 8 months after his father's funeral, a quick temple ceremony. She wore a pale blue lehenga and didn't bow to the elders. I remember that clearly. No one noticed, or maybe they chose not to. She's a second-generation Indian American, born in Seattle, raised on mac and cheese, yoga pants, and ambition. She works in digital marketing, always typing, clicking, scrolling. Everything in her world seems temporary, except her opinions. From the beginning, I sensed she didn't want me in their house. But Arjun said, "Ma, you have to come. You can't be alone." And I didn't want to be alone. So I moved into the guest room, brought my brass masala box, my saris, and the small wooden box of handwritten recipes my mother had given me on my wedding day. That box held more than food instructions. It held memories. Smudges from ghee-stained fingers, scribbles in the margins like "too spicy for appa" or "use jaggery, not sugar, Amma's trick." Each page felt alive. In the beginning, I cooked for them as I always had. Idli and sambar for breakfast, aloo paratha on weekends, mango rasam when the summer sun came strong. But slowly the table grew quieter. Meera would wrinkle her nose. "Too oily," she'd say, pushing the plate away. Or, "Can you just not use curry leaves? They taste like soap." I adjusted. Used olive oil instead of ghee, less salt, more kale. Tried tofu in the biryani once. It broke my heart, but I did it. Still, nothing pleased her. Soon, take-out boxes began arriving in the evenings. Chipotle, Thai, sushi. I would watch from the kitchen doorway as they ate on the couch, laughing at Netflix shows while my chapatis sat untouched, still warm in the roti box. "Did you eat, Ma?" Arjun would ask, not looking up. "Yes," I'd lie, and take my plate into my room. That small space became my world. The walls smelled of sandalwood and turmeric, like home. I kept my cookbook tucked beside my bed. Then came the day I found Meera reorganizing the bookshelf. "This old thing," she said, holding my mother's cookbook between 2 fingers as if it were mouldy bread. "It smells like smoke. No one wants your dusty recipes." She laughed. And I broke. Not loudly, not with a scream or a slap. I just stopped. I stopped cooking. I stopped trying. I stopped offering. And for a while I drifted through the house like one of the smells they complained about. Faint, persistent, and unwelcome. But something unexpected happened. One Tuesday morning, I walked to the Fremont Community Centre. I hadn't been there since Arjun was a child, when we'd go for Diwali events. Now, I saw a small sign posted outside. Seniors Potluck Thursdays, homemade meals welcome. I stood there staring at it, the cool spring breeze lifting the edge of my dupatta. I don't know what pushed me, but the next Thursday I returned. I made lemon rice and carrot halwa, not for anyone in particular, just to remind myself that I still could. There were only 10 people there, a Korean woman with dumplings, a Mexican grandfather with tamales, an old American lady named Janice who said my food reminded her of a trip to Goa in 1987. I smiled for the first time in months. Every week I brought something different: coconut chutney, masala dosa, brinjal curry. Word began to spread. More people showed up. One man came with a clipboard and started asking questions. "Who made this dal?" he asked. I raised my hand shyly. He introduced himself. Raymond Liu, a chef at a local farm-to-table cafe, said he'd never tasted spices used so delicately. "Balanced heat, not just burn-your-mouth fire," he said, licking his fingers. I laughed for the first time in a long time. He asked me if I would consider teaching a class. "People would pay to learn this," he said. I told him I was just someone's mother, someone's widow, but he shook his head. "You're someone who knows how to tell stories through food," he said. "That's rare." That night, I opened my wooden box for the first time in weeks. I touched every page like a prayer, and I began to write again. It started small. One Saturday a month, I would go to the community kitchen at the senior centre and teach a class. We called it Flavours from My Mother's Hands. I didn't know how to use a microphone. My English was still stiff with my accent, but people listened. They leaned in. They asked questions. And when they tasted my food, their eyes lit up. I'd never thought much about my cooking beyond whether it made my husband smile or filled my son's belly. But now, strangers, men in baseball caps, women with notepads, teenagers with dyed hair, were calling my rasam transcendent. That word made me laugh out loud. Raymond would come by sometimes to help with prep. He was 30-something, wore thick black glasses and had sleeve tattoos of herbs: basil, rosemary, curry leaf. He told me he'd trained in Paris and New York, but said the best meals he ever had were the ones where the cook wasn't showing off. "You don't perform," he said once as I layered tamarind and jaggery into a pan. "You nourish." He asked if I'd ever thought about doing a pop-up kitchen, just a few weekends. "We'll handle the logistics. You plan the menu. People will come. Trust me." I hesitated. "What if no one shows?" I asked. "Then we eat like royalty," he grinned. I agreed. That night, I told Arjun I'd be out of the house for the weekend. Mira raised an eyebrow. "What for?" I told her I was doing a pop-up food event at the farmer's market. She chuckled. "People pay for that. Indian food's already everywhere. And honestly, yours is kind of homey, not like modern fusion or anything." I didn't reply. I just nodded and left the room. Inside I was burning. The first day of the pop-up was a Sunday. Clear skies, long lines at every tent. I wore a simple cream sari and brought my own pressure cooker from home. The table was covered with a red cotton cloth. Raymond had printed a banner that said, "Melani's Memory Kitchen, Real South Indian Soul Food." I had 3 dishes: Mysore rasam, tangy with black pepper and fresh tomato; tamarind rice, piping hot and wrapped in banana leaf; jaggery payasam, creamy, sweet, spiced with cardamom. By 11 a.m. we had a line. By 2 p.m. we were sold out. Someone posted about it on Instagram. Then a food blogger showed up. Then a local news anchor. By the second weekend, the line wrapped around the market lot. A woman told me she'd driven from Sacramento after seeing a video where someone described my payasam as tasting like your grandmother's hug. I cried in the storage room that day, quietly, gratefully. Raymond came in and handed me a cold bottle of water. People don't just want food, he said. They want to feel something. And you? You give them that in a spoonful. At home, I didn't say much. Mira didn't ask. She was busy planning her company retreat in Napa and trying intermittent fasting. Arjun just said, "Glad you're staying busy, Ma." But one night, I came home and found my old wooden recipe box gone from my shelf. "Where is it?" I asked, heart racing. Mira looked up from the couch. "Oh, that thing?" I put it in storage. The housekeeper almost knocked it over again. "You should digitize those pages. Or better, get a cooking blog." She said it like a joke. I felt something boil in me I hadn't allowed for years. "You didn't ask," I said, voice low. "Well, it's not a museum in here," she said, shrugging. "Seriously, no one wants those crusty old notes anymore. We have AI recipe generators now." I walked out without another word. I drove to the storage unit myself, found the box shoved behind suitcases and a broken coffee table. Some of the papers had curled at the edges. One was torn. I sat in the car for a long time, clutching it to my chest, breathing like I used to during labor. That night I didn't sleep. But I did write a menu, a full one, with 6 courses, all from the box. I wrote the names in Tamil and English, added little notes from memory beside each. Vendakai poriyal, okra stir-fry like Appa used to eat during monsoons. Thayesadam, comfort food, best served after heartbreak. I handed it to Raymond the next morning. He looked at it, then at me. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. The restaurant wasn't fancy, just a converted cafe space in downtown San Jose that Raymond's friend let us borrow 3 nights a week. But we painted it in warm marigold and teal. We added hand-woven runners, and we named it simply Hummus Table. The first month we were booked solid. The second month, the San Francisco Chronicle ran a story, "The Quiet Power of Amma, How One Widow's Recipes Revived a City's Appetite." They used my photo, hair tied in a bun, a red bindi, hands folded in greeting. Arjun saw it on Facebook. "Ma," he said that evening, walking into the kitchen. "Wow, you're really blowing up, huh?" Mira followed behind. "Yeah, I mean, congrats and all. We didn't know it was this serious." I looked up from the pan. "We were thinking," Mira continued, "maybe we could stop by this weekend, bring some friends, show support." I smiled. "You're always welcome," I said. She beamed. Arjun looked relieved. "But," I added gently, "the line is long. You'll need to book a reservation online." She blinked. "Oh, well, I figured you'd save us a spot." I stirred the lentils. The smell of curry leaves bloomed in the air. "I don't get involved with the booking system," I said. "Raymond handles that, keeps it fair." She didn't say anything else, but I did. "Besides," I added softly, "it's just homey food. You may not like it." The night they finally came, it rained. A soft silver rain, the kind that taps gently on car roofs and brings out the scent of wet earth and old memory. Amma's table was glowing that evening. Small clay lamps lined the entrance, and jasmine garlands hung above the doorway, just like my mother used to decorate for Pongal. I didn't expect them to actually show up, but at exactly 6:45, I saw Mira through the window. Hair slicked back, high heels, umbrella in one hand and phone in the other. Arjun trailed behind her, holding a gift bag. They hadn't made a reservation. Of course not. Raymond met them at the door. I could see his polite but firm smile as he explained we were fully booked, and the wait list was several weeks out. Mira gestured toward me at the back of the kitchen like I was supposed to wave her through. I didn't. I kept stirring the sambar. After a few minutes, I heard the door chime again. They'd left. I'm not proud of the pleasure I felt, but it wasn't petty. It wasn't revenge. It was the quiet satisfaction of finally having boundaries, of owning something they couldn't control, reduce, or repurpose. They had laughed at the cookbook, dismissed the smells, the stories, the woman who held it all together with turmeric-stained hands. But here I was, feeding strangers who tasted not just my food, but my history, and wanting more. After the first article came out, more followed. One day it was a segment on local TV. Another day, a well-known food influencer called my tamarind rice life-changing. I didn't even know what an influencer was until Mira sent me a text. Saw you on IG Reels. You're famous now. Ha ha ha. I didn't reply. Fame wasn't what I'd wanted. I still rode the bus, still wore my old saris, safety-pinned at the waist, still ground my own spices by hand because I didn't trust the store blends. But something inside me had changed. I had a place of my own now, a place where people asked me what I thought, where no one laughed when I said, "This is my mother's recipe," or "I learned this one after burning it 3 times," where I could bring out a wooden box of recipes, frayed, handwritten, stained, and watch people treat it like a treasure chest. One woman came with her teenage daughter. After the meal, she leaned across the table and whispered, "I haven't tasted food like this since my grandmother died. Thank you." Another time, a white man in his 60s cried while eating my payasam. "I don't know why," he said, dabbing his eyes. "I think it just made me feel safe." I moved out of Arjun's house 6 months after opening Amma's table. No announcement, no fight. I just packed my bags and told him I'd found a small studio apartment near the restaurant. He looked stunned. Mira looked relieved. "We'll miss having you around," she said, though we both knew it was a lie. I left them with a jar of mango pickle, sealed with wax the way my mother taught me. It was my only parting gift. The apartment was nothing special, a 1-bedroom with creaky floors and too much sunlight in the mornings. But it smelled like my life: cumin, ginger, soap, books. I kept the recipe box on the kitchen counter like a shrine. And for the first time in decades, I cooked for myself. No dietary restrictions. No edits to please anyone else. I fried vada in ghee. I made dosa that sizzled across the whole pan. I drank tea, strong and sweet, without judgment. And when I sat down to eat, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, by myself. 2 weeks after I moved out, Arjun visited me alone. He brought tulips. "Mira picked them," he said, setting them awkwardly on my small table. We sat in silence for a while. Then he looked at me. Really looked. "Ma," he said, his voice soft, "I didn't know how unhappy you were." I sipped my tea. "You didn't ask?" He flinched. "I thought you liked being with us," he tried again. "I liked being your mother," I said, "but I forgot to be myself." He nodded slowly. He looked older than I remembered, tired, guilt-heavy. "You've done something amazing," he finally said. "I'm proud of you." I didn't say thank you. Instead, I reached across the table and held his hand. "I still love you, Arjun," I said, "but I won't shrink any more." He nodded again. this time with tears in his eyes. The restaurant expanded. Raymond helped me build a team. We hired a second cook, a young Sri Lankan woman named Maya, who chopped faster than anyone I'd ever seen. I trained her slowly, carefully. Not just the recipes, but the spirit behind them. Cook like you're telling someone a secret, I told her, like the food is carrying a message. We began hosting storytelling nights. People came not just to eat, but to hear about my childhood in Tamil Nadu, my father's obsession with jackfruit curry, the time my mother made murukku during a power outage using candlelight. And then, one day, I received a letter. Not an email, a real letter with an embossed envelope. It was from the James Beard Foundation. I was a semi-finalist for Best Emerging Chef. I laughed, out loud, alone in my kitchen. Emerging at 58. But that's the thing about being a woman who gives everything to others for most of her life. When she finally emerges, she's not delicate or uncertain. She's ready. Last week, I stood outside Amma's table and watched people lining up before we opened. Old couples holding hands, young foodies with DSLR cameras, a mother explaining to her daughter what turmeric was for. And I thought about that first day at the community centre, the lemon rice, the timid smile, the scent of possibility. I thought about Mira's laughter when she'd dropped my cookbook, the way she'd wrinkled her nose, and I thought about how I'd looked at her then, and how I could now, with peace, with distance, with something close to forgiveness. She and Arjun did come back one day, made a reservation like everyone else, brought friends, wore polite smiles. They ate everything on their plates. When the bill came, Mira hesitated. Arjun reached for his wallet. But I had already told the staff, no family discounts, not out of spite, out of fairness. They paid the full amount, left a small tip, and as they left, I walked them to the door. "Thank you for coming," I said. And I meant it. Now, every morning, I unlock the restaurant myself. I light a small diya near the kitchen window and whisper a quiet thank you to my mother. And then I cook. With joy. With power. With no one watching over my shoulder. Sometimes, I sit at the back table when the shift is over and flip through my cookbook. I keep adding pages, notes from customers, memories that resurface during spice grinding, new tweaks I discover with Maya. It's not dusty anymore. It's alive, just like me. Today, I am 59. I live alone. I own a business. I laugh loudly. I eat what I like. I teach what I know. I've made peace with the silence I used to dread, because now it's filled with my own voice. I'm not just someone's mother, someone's widow, someone's burden. I am Melanie, daughter of Savitri, keeper of flavour, teller of stories, and a woman who finally set a table for herself and invited the world to come and taste.